Kia ora koutou katoa, e ho ma, no mai, hara mai, ki te Palpate or StayMe Always, bringing it to you organic, live and dynamic. Now bring me your cups and let's dip into the healing well. Good morning everybody, how are you? It's been a couple of days and no apologies because guess what? We were having some days off, so don't hate on us for doing that. We need a rest and now back on track. Before we get started, we are talking about relationships, a continuation from our last show, but I would love to introduce my amazing Divergents. Anmi, how are you over there on the Goldie?
Fantastic. Today is a beautiful sunny day. It's been really nice, but it gets really cold at night. And we are no longer in lockdown. However, New South Wales and Victoria are in a terrible situation. So I feel really sorry for my friends there. Although crossing the border is very challenging and I live only 20 kilometers from the border. So it causes a lot of dramas because, you know, business people work together. There's people who live just across the border and work in Queensland. They can't enter, so they can't work. So yeah, we are dealing with different challenges to you guys. But yes, it's beautiful weather, so that's a gift, right?
Oh, fantastic. Oh, well, we'll keep going with that positivity and that nice weather over there in the Goldie. And then TZ Created, what's happening in your hood?
Hola a todos y bienvenidos. Vamos. So here in my little neck of corner of the woods, I have a little special guest with me here. My little power, Miss Kiki. So what's been happening for me is I just started my TZ Tuesday show on your platform, StayMe Always. So thank you very much for the encouragement to do that. Yeah, forever indebted to you for everything that you've done for me thus far. And then obviously working with the impeccable Anmi. And just working with you guys and then just trying to get through lockdown and just keep the emotional roller coaster on an even keel, not too far up and not too far down, and just trying to stay in the, like quarterbacks say, stay in the pocket. And then just doing more music, working on Amazon stuff and all the things that we're doing here. But yeah, grateful to be here. Kia ora koutou, everybody.
Fantastic. And you'll see, obviously, to my right, I have Miss Kaya. So, yes, we are in Hamilton, NZ lockdown level 4, and we have everybody in the house. So what we decided to do is have a little bit of fun, and we have all decided to get dressed up in our onesies. Put your hood on. And have a little bit of fun and roll around in our hoodies and our onesies. I think, Kiana, what are we? Are we sloths? I don't even know what animal I am, but that's okay. So look, we're going to get started. Anmi, actually, just before we get started into our topic discussing relationships, that was really interesting what you were saying in terms of crossing of the borders. So I lived in Australia for quite a while and travelled down to the Goldie and Coolangatta. So how far are you from Coolangatta and that border?
15 minutes drive. So it's really, really close, like 18 kilometers.
Right.
And whereabouts are you?
I'm in Varsity Lakes. Varsity Lakes is where the university is located. Many Kiwis study here as well. And normally when I pick someone up from the airport, it's about like a 15-minute drive, 12 to 15 minutes with no traffic. Yeah. And we used to go surf across the border. Impossible now, so we have to find Liba, yeah. Yeah,
I used to surf there when I lived in Tweed Heads.
There we go. So you can still go there, I believe, but no further south. And we also have friends that have businesses in Tweed, and it's like a real problem because people from the Gold Coast, from our part of the Gold Coast, want to, like use vans. He has a camper van rental place. So most people just pick up the van and then want to drive into Queensland or go to like 1770 up north, Noosa, and all these beautiful tropical places. But unfortunately, you need to quarantine for 14 days if you want to do that, which is crazy, right?
Wow. That's interesting. And because obviously on the cusp of the Gold Coast, the border of New South Wales, the border runs down the main street in Coolangatta. That's correct?
That's right. So there is people that live across the street, and the kids can't go across the street from the school, and the kids can't go to school because that would be crossing the border.
Wow.
Yeah, and a grocery shop, like in that town, there is a grocery shop and the school is on one side, and people live on the other side. So yes, they're kind of stuck for now until further notice. It's really crazy. Like they should have chosen a different line if they really wanted to create a line for people not to go somewhere.
Yeah, and it just doesn't seem to make sense. Just thinking about it logically, because if anybody knows where the border is and it runs literally down the main street, the closest services would be Gold Coast versus going further inland towards New South Wales, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But
now they have a new regulation as well about quarantining. So before, people from New South Wales would be able to enter Queensland if they quarantine for 14 days, which is a cost of almost $3,000. So it's a quite expensive exercise if you just swapping states or coming in and going out. I mean, who has that money to do that? I don't know. And I mean, not that they have flown in from overseas, it's just that they want to come into the state. And so now there is a new regulation that no residents from New South Wales or Victoria can quarantine. So it's now illegal. It's just overseas people that fly into Brisbane, because that's the main international airport, and Sydney. But in Sydney, people would quarantine in Sydney. They are able to quarantine. So nobody from interstate. That's how strict it is now.
Wow. That's amazing. I really, to be honest, I don't really know what to say about that. It just doesn't make any sense. But look, we've had situations here where they've had to have police stops to stop, and this is little old New Zealand where we don't have states. It's literally just separated by towns and the rural farmland, and they've had to have police stops for people entering in and out of Auckland to stop people obviously travelling and then trying to stop the virus to spread. And there's been discussion and a bit of disruption and argument around where it should start, where it should end. And because we're on the cusp of Waikato region as well as the Auckland region, what does that actually look like? So it's not clear at all. And this was last lockdown, and then obviously, but it's interesting because what's happening over there in Australia seems to be hopping over into our country, and there's similarities that are crossing into New Zealand, but that's another story. So but look, what we want to talk about is the continuation of relationships. Being in a level 4 lockdown, we felt it was really important to understand how we can continue our everyday life, our life in a relationship with our partners, our friends, our family. And what we were talking about at the end of our last show was vulnerability and intimacy, and understanding the importance behind why there's a necessity to have that being vulnerable with each other, and obviously having that intimacy within those relationships. So Anmi, just talk to us a little bit about the importance behind both.
Vulnerability is necessary if you want to grow in a relationship, because people think that the most difficult part in a relationship is the first 2 years. Yes, that's true, but it gets easier. So the more open you are, the more open communication you have from the beginning, the more you basically, put your cards on the table, that your partner knows exactly. I think in the last show we talked about the love languages. If you understand what is the most important, let's say 2 of the 5 love languages of your partner, it's quite easy even to, in case there is a dispute, to rectify the situation, because like for example, a gift or acts of service. If you fix something, then they will go, "Ah, how nice," and then they will appreciate you again. I know that sounds very simplistic, but getting to know each other as good as you can is very important, in my opinion, to have a well-functioning relationship, have harmony within the relationship. And it's also easier when something goes wrong to fix what is wrong. And another tip that I would like to give people is, do not let things escalate. If there is a drama, it's good to have like a timeout, because I understand dramas occur. It's not always moonlight and sunshine and or it's moonlight and roses. Yes, wrong expression. Because if you are locked in and you do spend a lot of time together, it's a normal consequence that there is going to be some turbulence, or more likely to be turbulence. So what I would say is, address the situation straight away. Don't just go, I won't say anything. And then later on, it's like building up, and then if there is an explosion. So I would always say, have direct communication, talk it out. Take some time out, because that's always good as well. Like say, okay, I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm coming back in 10 minutes, and then we will discuss. And then, while you are walking, you will see things differently. And then during the walk, don't wind yourself up, because women specifically do that. Oh, and he said that, and like making it worse, because you're not angry about the emotion. So, for example, you're angry, you're frustrated that you feel that emotion, then you're angry about feeling that emotion, then you're feeling like stuck, so it's an emotion that drives you, spiraling down about another emotion. So just look at the emotion, say, I'm angry. Why? What happened? 5 years from now, is that still going to be important? Probably can't remember it, so no. Let it go and go back, and happy days, have a muffin or something. The second element that you were talking about was intimacy. Very, very important, because I think we spoke about it in the previous show very briefly as well. The glue of a relationship is definitely intimacy and eating, spending time together eating. That is very interesting. I've done a lot of research on that. And if you have an issue with having 3 or 4 children at home and having intimacy, people say, okay, how's this going to work? Well, set a time, because put the kids to bed, make a schedule, and really stick to that schedule. Don't have the kids up till 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever, because it's lockdown. No. I think you talked about that, Jamie, as well. Having boundaries and having me time is so important. So keep to a schedule. Although you're in lockdown, it's so super important. People need a routine, because there are many studies. Harvard University has done studies on a routine contributes to happiness, and for kids as well. It is better for their brain. They learn better. They're more calm. They're more peaceful when they are in a routine. It's the same for adults. So if you create that routine, you can have a date with your husband or partner, or is absolutely possible in a lockdown house. Get some candles, get some food, and go for it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up the routine with children, because I absolutely back that up. The amount of times I've trialed it just to see how my kids would react in their behaviour if there wasn't a routine, because I just really just wanted to trial it and to see the effect that it has. But you are absolutely correct. Their mood, their behaviour, their emotions become heightened, especially when they haven't had enough sleep. So yeah, I'm actually glad that you did say that, because it is absolutely important. But then it helps keep their emotions in check as well, because obviously one day they'll be fine, and then all of a sudden they're staying up till midnight, and then the next day they crash and they're upset and they're moody, and they themselves can't actually understand what's going on, and then that makes it more difficult for them to balance out their emotions and how they're feeling. And then obviously it's going to send the adults into, you know, chaos, because now I've got to deal with an upset child. So, you know, I'm really glad that you did mention that. And TZ, you know, talking about vulnerability, as a male, we all know it's quite hard for men to get to that point of becoming vulnerable with their partner. And we were talking about on the last show, I think it's that, you know, that kind of macho stigma and persona that they constantly have to be showing on the outside, whereas on the inside, it also seems to be a bit of a battle. And yeah, what's your opinion on that?
It's real simple. It comes down to who you're raised by.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as it gets, because again, I'm going to go back to the first 7 years, and I'm always going to go back in, because it entrenches your psychology. I was talking to my cousin actually about this today, and he is having problems with his ex and the way their kids are reacting really adversely where she is. I won't mention any names. And because he's been getting off drugs and alcohol and going through that whole process, and everything comes down to psychology, because he was saying to me today that she's moaning about their kids' behavior, and he summed it up in a nutshell, and he said, well, they're only doing what you taught them. And so now she's trying to get advice on how to deal with them. Kids only do what we teach them. And so the reason why men are the way they are, they're macho, especially in this country, I've noticed it the most. They're macho, they're alphas, and there seems to be this big play on being an alpha and being dominant. And, you know, it comes back to that Hollywood ideal where you watch movie stars like The Rock. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it, but that's where the psychological conditioning comes from. So it starts, and it's a pernicious cycle, really, because it starts from you watching TV, watching movies. People need to read more and stop watching so many movies, because what you're actually allowing your kids to do is you're allowing your kids to be programmed and educated by outside external sources. And that's what people don't realize, the profundity of what they're actually doing. You're allowing other people to train your children based on what they watch, because you are what you eat. And so therefore, whatever you read, whatever you watch visually, whatever you hear, that's what you're going to tune into. And that's what's going to shape and mold you from when you're a child all the way into adulthood. And then obviously there's levels to psychology in terms of what you were talking about before, the both of you, getting to know your partner. How do you do that? And at what levels do you do that? Because there's levels to everything. And so do you want to base somebody's actions or the way they speak on your past experience? Or do you actually want to listen to them explain to you what they actually mean by something that actually might offend you, when really all you need to do is understand what they're actually trying to convey and stop misinterpreting what they're saying?
Yeah, actually, that goes back to back with one of my lives that I did in regards to momentum brushes. So momentum brushes are the invisible things which you manifest into the physical, and it's using your senses, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, understanding what they are, and then knowing when you do something or put action into place, how that makes you feel. And as much as I totally agree, like I love The Rock. Who doesn't love The Rock? I can't do that with my elbow, with my eye if I tried. But I'm sure you get the point. But the reality is, what you see, it's all aesthetic. And what I was explaining on my live is that as much as I woke up one day and I wasn't feeling 100%, I was feeling a little bit down and ill, what was going to make me happy was obviously changing my mindset and putting the right foot forward and being positive about how the day was going to be. And the action I then decided that I was going to do to make the invisible emotions and thoughts and my senses and that was happening to make me happy was to put some makeup on and straighten my hair, because when I do that, I feel happy, I feel fulfilled, and I actually like looking at myself. And as much as there's people out there that are going to say, and I mentioned this on my live, that it's all fake. It's all fake. Well, every single female knows that in order for you to feel good, we do things to ourselves, like put on makeup, we do our hair, we put on a specific color, we wear a particular type of clothing that makes us feel a certain way. But what was really important was I had to get the message out that it's not about the aesthetic. It's all about the feeling. And that's the problem with a lot of the movies, like The Rock, and then seeing him doing all of his, wrestling moves and his movies, is that that's what you see, that macho persona, and it's a character. But what they fail to do is actually explain is that's just a character. That's actually not the way that he is. So unfortunately, we're not providing enough information for our young ones to understand what that actually means. So you're absolutely right. And Unme, in your experience, why is it so hard for males to actually become vulnerable with their partners? What is it that's actually stopping them psychologically upstairs?
Boys would be raised. I did once a presentation and I had some facts on a slide that people they are not aware of this, and I'm happily sharing this with the show. Did you know that male sperm, because that's where it all starts, isn't it? Male sperm can only survive 12 to maximum 20 hours, while female sperm can survive up to 7 days. So if we then really want to discuss who's the strongest, I'm not going to draw conclusions, but I'm sure you can draw your own conclusions. Did you know that, and there is no competition here, this is just facts, right? Did you know that this is just the sperm? Yeah, so we're talking about 5 to 20 hours and 7 days. Then did you know that male babies in the first, I can't remember exactly how long, but the first 7 days, let's say, just to be safe, are way more susceptible, about 70% more susceptible to catching a deadly disease and actually die than female babies. Female babies seem to be way stronger and can survive different kind of, I don't know anymore, because this is like, I don't know, 8 years ago, so I can't remember exactly what it was, but that was really remarkable that male babies were way more likely to die. And this is in the West and in underdeveloped countries. And then also what I wanted men to remind is that in the end, where did they come from? Were they born out of men? Were they born out of women? And if you're born out of a woman, maybe that woman has carried you and fed you before you even kind of really existed as a human for 9 months. And that woman went through the delivery process, which is an excruciating pain that men would never be capable of bearing. And, I had, I think, 14 points. I think I've just given you 4 points. But just these 4 points, we're not looking at who is the strongest here, but there should be respect towards women. And I believe it's in my big fat Greek wedding that somebody says, a man is the head of the family, but the woman is the neck who can turn the head wherever she wants, right? And in a way, that's true. Also, I believe the woman has a special ability and special chemicals inside her. She's born with that. So she can create bones, lung tissue, and eye tissue, which is one of the most complex things that not one scientist has ever been able to reproduce. So something to think about. And as I said, it's not a competition. But to answer your question, and that's what I wanted to really mention, that make men think. Like, yes, there is maybe a reasoning behind why they want to be like the strongest one. Maybe because there is that subconscious knowledge of, no, we are not the creator. We are not the one that delivered the babies. We are not the, the one, the one that has to go through all this pain. And but my personal belief is the psychology behind the education when when a child is small, baby boys, don't cry, don't be a pussy, don't be like a woman. But then, is that really true? Because women are strong, right? If you really look at our abilities and our pain threshold. So I think it's definitely the conditioning from a young age. And if boys would be treated the same as girls and like explain their emotions and why are you scared and why are you feeling this, I think we would live in a completely different world. So I hope that answers the question a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. And actually, Teasy, I'm going to throw this one back to you. If you were to give some advice to all those males and even females out there in terms of how they can become and be more vulnerable towards their partners, what's some suggestions that you can make that people can use?
Look, I'm just going to read a scripture that says it all. It's from Ephesians 5, and it's from verse 25, and it's real simple. It says, husbands, male partners, love your wives, your partner, just as Yahushua loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word. It's talking about the word of Yahuwah, which is what I revolve around. And to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, and they nurture it and nourish it, just as Yahushua does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. And this is a profound mystery, as Holy Scripture says. And so I think the majority of the problem is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. And so what you do in the spiritual will manifest and translate into the physical. And so that affects you the most. So if you're breaking spiritual laws, then that's going to manifest into your physical realm and into your life, and it's going to affect your emotions, which affect your intimacy. It's going to affect your mental well-being, which is going to affect your psychology. And this is the problem with people all over the world. They think that they can break spiritual laws and there be no consequences for it. Look at the world around us, man. It is broken. And if I can speak to this, I am a protagonist for females. I'm not a man hater. I'm not a woman hater. I love everybody, but I look at a world whose history is punctuated with a litany of suffering after suffering after suffering after suffering, wars, everything, and they're all spearheaded by men. And I hate to say it, but that's just the truth, and that's what the show is about, is speaking this truth. So as men, and speaking for myself now, I'm the total opposite. Like, I'm really in touch with my emotions, but that's because I'm spiritually well. And so because I'm spiritually well, that translates over into how I treat my partner, and I treat her like a queen, to be honest. And then I give her all the affection, because women want affection. They want time. They want to know that they're a priority. They want validation. And then you've got to work it out with them instead of being impatient. Work it out with them. If you're having problems, it's just the psychology. It's all it is. It's just the way that you're both considering an event. And the ruckus comes, or the conflict comes, when you have a different perception to each other of that event. But if you really want to have a satisfying and satiating relationship. You got to get down to the nuts and bolts of the psychology of that, break it all the way down. And then that gives you a real good understanding of how each other is perceiving it, how each other is seeing it. And then you got to listen to each other's intentions rather than what you think you're perceiving them to be doing. You got to listen to intentions and ultimately just be real with each other, man. Because once you get that vulnerability into play, then comes the intimacy. And the intimacy is the glue, as you said, Anmi, to any relationship. Yeah, amazing stuff.
Yeah, if you were to, there's going to be people, there's going to be people out there that may not quite understand from that spiritual side that you're speaking of. So when you're talking about spiritual laws, do you just want to break that down so it's absolutely clear about what you're saying?
Yeah, so it's fidelity. Ultimately, it's fidelity. Because if you look at the culture, and this is the Hollywood culture again, the culture is, sleep with as many women as you want, women sleep with as many men as you want, and you're breaking spiritual laws. And so when you break spiritual laws, you take that back to your household, and if you've got kids there, whatever demonic spirits you bring with you, they attach themselves to your children at home, and then your house ends up in turmoil, and then somebody will come to your house, and it's like it's basically like this virus that we're dealing with. People catch it and they take it with them, and then all of a sudden you have this spiritual pandemic going on, and people are not even aware of it.
No, and you're right, and I can see on me you're nodding your head big time.
100%, yeah. And this is also, I have when Tizi was reading scripture, it was like, wow, I have something really amazing. I didn't plan this, but somebody sent it to me. This is from Osho. This is obviously from Buddhism. And Osho is a man, and he's a sage. He's like people used to go for him for advice. He says the female is more powerful than the male, the female is more powerful than the masculine. The soft is more powerful than the hard. The water is more powerful than the rock. Because remember, the water will get its way through the rock, although the rock looks the strongest, right? And advice for men, when you show your emotions, when you open up, that is the only time that your spirit, that you can learn, that your mind can learn, and that you can elevate together with the woman. So you can grow together. If you just stay like the rock, there is no, I mean, as in the rock, I mean now the real rock, right? And the rock and the water. So then you can never grow. So if you are becoming more like water and more fluid, remember, water, you put it in a glass, it becomes the glass. I think Bruce Lee said that.
I was just gonna say that.
If you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. You put it in a vase, it becomes the vase. Be like water, and that's the only way. And that is feminine energy. There's nothing wrong with like, oh, men who are scared to be gay, or whatever that complex is. I have no idea. But become the water, because that's the only way that you can change, that you can grow, that your heart will open, and that you can truly connect with the woman. And I'll just quickly add to that. My husband is Brazilian, and we have a really, really strong connection. And he's very vulnerable. He has a painting company, and he looks really macho. But when we talk, we can go into really, really deep conversations and very painful conversations sometimes. So it is possible. So just, like take off, see yourself as an onion, like peel back one layer, and it's the most beautiful gift you can give a woman is your heart, the real.
Touche.
Yeah.
It's
not your muscles, because most men think, yeah, it's my muscles, she's gonna like my muscles. Yeah, we like that too, but we prefer your heart, because the muscles, when you look, I don't know, 35 or you look 85, they're gonna look slightly different, but
exactly.
Your heart is gonna look the same, right?
Yeah, it's the same perception, obviously, with women, how men perceive women. Your facade is going to change as the years go by, so it's exactly the same for men and women. And it's great to be discussing how you can become vulnerable, and there's different ways and means. And look, everybody has been through it, or about to go through it at some point within their life, and it's using different mechanism and ways that will help you to see it through. And I know a couple of ways for me when I'm trying to be vulnerable, especially because as much as I look very, happy and positive, some things I do struggle with, and being vulnerable is actually one of them. So for me, it's actually about timing, and I need to be comfortable and ready to be able to have those types of discussions and show those types of actions. So it's about, again, that communication between the two. And if you're honest with your partner and to say that, look, I'm not ready to be vulnerable right now, and I will do it over time, but I will do it slowly, then it's reciprocated and that's understood, and then there's no miscommunication. And like Tisa was saying, it's that whole perception. So for me, it's about being honest. And in actual fact, the next question I'm going to ask, and I'm going to throw that one to you and me, at some point, and I'm not saying that everyone will come to this point, but you are going to hit a crossroads where honesty, loyalty will become a question mark. And regardless of which direction and who it is in question, but Anmi, how do you actually transition and move forward when you've found your other partner may have been dishonest or failed to omit the detail and the truth of a specific circumstance or situation? Because some people do have a past, and it has affected them quite dramatically to the point where becoming vulnerable actually stops. It doesn't exist anymore because of their past, and you hang on to it. What sort of suggestions can you offer? And especially during this lockdown, because you're stuck in your four walls, you can't get away from your partner, and especially if a situation occurs. What's your suggestions?
So an excellent question, because specifically when you do spend more time together, you're going to find out more about each other. And then it's up to you, really, because it's either, there is two things you can do. When you find out something you don't like, you need to first ask yourself the question, why am I with this person? Am I with this person because of their muscles or their face, or how much money they make, or what house they can provide me? Or am I with this person for the deeper, the beautiful soul that they are and the connection that I have with them? Because of course it's nice to have beautiful things, but if that's the only thing, I would say just pack a bag and go, because let me tell you, that's just not gonna last if there is no connection from the heart. Now, if you find out some things that you cannot live with, and that's what I say with all my couples coaching that I do, you need to have negotiables and non-negotiables. So for me, in my relationship, we have negotiables, and we both have them, and we have non-negotiables. When it's a non-negotiable, obviously there is things that I cannot live with, and things that I cannot, that I can't forgive. So if that is the case, that is not aligned with my values, we will have to kind of we know that. But you need to set these before you start a relationship. So that is within your timeline together. Now, if this is something that happened before your timelines started running together, that is not up to you. That is actually none of your business. It's good to know, but that is the person themselves. They need to be able to sleep at night, and they need to know that what they have done is their business. That is none of your business. And sometimes not disclosing something is better than disclosing it, because you need to work through it yourself. Now, I'm very happy that my husband was quite open and honest with me, and there were things that I was absolutely in horror about, because I come from a very different background to him. And, sometimes you need to give the other person time. If you decide to disclose it, you need to give the other person time to emotionally get through it. And you need to also forgive each other. The Hawaiians have this amazing ritual. It's called Ho'oponoponopo, and you can Google this. It is I forgive you, thank you, I love you. And then they say that over and over and over. And what you actually do is you forgive yourself. So that is what I would suggest. So you need to always look at, was this before me? Was I in the picture? Do I have anything to do with this? No, then actually that's none of my business. So that is him or her. He needs to or she needs to work through that. And I feel you need to feel humble that people tell you these kind of things, although maybe you don't want to hear them. So they trust you to such an extent to give you that kind of information about them. So in a way, it might come as a brick to the head or in your, like stone to the face. But what if they didn't say anything and then, they carry that with them? See that as like a gift that they give you, and forgive. Because if it's before you, as I said, it's nothing to do with you. You need to look at from the moment you kind of got together, walk the timeline together, that is your responsibility together. Before that, that's all additional. And forgiveness. I am a strong believer in forgiveness.
No, I agree. I'm very much the same. I've had a lot of situations cross my path over the years, and I made the decision because I found if I did not forgive, I would turn into a rather bitter, horrible individual. And I made a pact with myself to ensure that I would never turn that way. So I definitely believe in definitely forgiving. Do I forget? I try and forget, but ultimately, but it depends. Everyone's different, and look, at the end of the day, everyone's got a different standpoint in terms of how they see the situation. But you do it based on, and I do a lot based on how I'm feeling and who I want to be and how I want to carry myself going forward. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we keep talking about it. I have children and I want to show them the best me in terms of how to deal with various multiple different types of situations. Teasy, and for you, in this kind of circumstance, what suggestions can you give, from a male standpoint in terms of, when that kind of honesty and that trust, unfortunately, has been tarnished, broken, or actually sometimes there's a question mark around whether there is dishonesty or mistrust?
Yeah, I think for me, everything comes back to Holy Scripture. I live my life according to the sanctity of Holy Scripture. I haven't always, but especially since I've been back in God's zone, so to speak. There's something about being back in Aotearoa. There's something deeply spiritual about being home. And I've really grounded myself in Yahuwah's word since I've been back here. And it's taken me to whole new levels of spirituality. Like right now, I'm doing a 7-day fast without food, and I'm into the fourth day. We spoke about this in previous shows, and me. And just my feeling that I'm getting with my body right now is what I used to feel when I used to smoke marijuana. But I'm getting it naturally, and it's because my body's purging all the toxins, and because all the toxins are out, there's nothing in there to pollute my body, and so my connection to the spiritual realm is on a whole another level. I've never felt like this before. My senses are electric. I can hear things. It feels like I'm connecting to everything around me, and I'm not even touching them. As I walk past, I can feel their vibration. I can feel the vibration of my computer. But without further digressing, and the reason why it connects to this is because it's Holy Scripture. I do my life by Holy Scripture, and so I answer to a higher power, and so therefore my standards will always be higher than the world's standards. And so when it comes to relationships and this particular aspect that we're talking about, when you have a hara, which is a sin or something bad happen, I think if you base it around this, which is 1 Corinthians 13 from verse 4 to 7, it says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, but here is the crux. It keeps no record of wrongs. And I think if the world learned to operate like this, what a whole different society we would have. But as it is, we have people who teach each other to retaliate, and I don't want anything to do with those kinds of teachings. I'm trying to be a good role model to young people, especially who are in my life, and then obviously trying to be a good role model based there. I mean, I don't always get it right because I'm human, and so I'm imperfect. But this is my intention every day, every single day. And so I get all my learnings on how to conduct myself, how to treat others from Holy Scripture. And even that's a work in progress because my family, they have a tendency to make me hoha or to pee me off, so to speak. But, you know, I still love them. And then the other thing I wanted to say is if you look at a person's track record with you, what do their actions tell you every single day? Because who they are every day is what they're going to be after you get past what it is that you're getting past. And if they've been doing it for months, the likelihood is they're going to keep doing it for months after that and months after that and months after that, because a leopard cannot change its spots.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I was teaching actually a regional manager of mine and mentoring. And I just happened to see a post of a video that she put on Insta, and she had documented in her notebook all the things, the people, the actions that hurt her, and she ripped it out of the book, and then she crumpled it all up, and then she threw it in the bin. And I was saying to myself, light that on fire, like light that, and throw it out the window. But I felt compelled to comment, and as much as it may seem I'm deviating away from what we were talking about, I simply said to her, you make a decision, you acknowledge it, you make the decision, and then you put the action into play. And that's exactly the same when you're dealing with your loved ones, your friends, and your family, and even decisions. You actually have to acknowledge it, and you actually have to eventually come to a decision. And in this case, we're dealing with honesty, dishonesty, loyalty. I base a lot of my dealings and my decisions on my emotions. Now, I don't allow my emotions. Sometimes, actually, I take that back. Sometimes my emotions do take and become the better of me. But when an important decision needs to be made, I absolutely use my senses. I use my gut feeling. I use my emotion to really become in tune with what I believe. As much as everybody else in the background may say, that's not correct, you have to make the decision. Don't use anybody else as a sounding. Use other people to assist you, to throw across ideas, but don't take on their energy. Don't take on their opinion, because at the end of the day, you may make the wrong decision. So trust your senses, trust what you feel, and just make that decision. It may not be right. It could be correct. But the fact of the matter is, you have to feel comfortable with it, because if you choose to believe somebody else and take on board their feedback and their decision and allow them to make the decision for you, you will regret it. And I suppose that's probably the best piece of advice I can say and pass on. And that's from personal experience. But look, everybody's human. And at the end of the day, we have to continue. We've got to move forward and do what you need to do that's going to help you move forward and continue your life. And hey, we're here not for a long time. Although we'd love to, I'd love to be here forever and ever and ever, but make the most of it, because you're not going to be here for very long. Just before we wrap up, Anmi, do you want to add anything in?
I was just going through my memory bank, and I remember about 11 years ago, I had a friend, and the husband cheated on her, and they had an amazing relationship. So how it happened, God knows. And she came to me and she's like, I'm going to burn all his clothes. And I don't think it was the husband, it was the partner. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Same, but different. And I sat with her and I said, you need to forgive him and you need to forgive you. And she's like, I don't know if I can do that. I said, well, you need to give yourself, it's like a morning time. Yeah. So it's, you need to give yourself a time to make a decision. Exactly what you said, Jamie. Life is based on decisions that you have made. Because if you are going to, if you're going to make any change in your life, it doesn't take a long time. It's just a decision. And what she did was she set for herself 72 hours, so 3 days, and to think and really sit with that emotion. Am I going to do it? Am I not? And then make a decision, like in the middle, and then stick with it. She went back and I said, once you've made a decision, we'll never speak about this again. And she went back and they just continued on, and he knew that what he had done is wrong, and he apologized, and that was it. Nobody ever talked about it, but she gave herself the time to forgive him and forgive herself. And for the same, token, it could have gone that she just took her bags and left, right? So, but it's that decision that you need to make, and don't go back, no resentment, because resentment kills a relationship.
Yep, I love the fact that you made it quite clear that once you made the decision, you don't talk about it. And I stick by that in every facet of how I operate with my children, with my partner, with my work, family, because ultimately, if you continue on the conversation and you keep it going, it's only just going to blow up in your face, as we all know, and it will never end. And at the end of the day, we want to be happy and you want to move forward. So I think that was a really great point. Teasy, before we wrap it up, anything else that you'd love to add into this conversation?
Yeah, I think when you have, and I'm not blaming it on other people, but I think we need to look at the company that we keep. Because we spoke about this in earlier shows. If you're around people who don't align with your vibration, then it's going to cause disruption. And what I mean by disruption is there's another scripture in 1 Corinthians 15:33, and it says, do not be misled, for bad company corrupts good character. Come back to your senses as you ought. And so we really need to pick our associations and our company very carefully, because we don't know what they do behind closed doors. We only know what they do in front of our faces. And so if they're doing spiritual things that are breaking these laws, and then you go and associate with them, you're putting yourself directly in the line of fire to have spiritual adverse, even nefarious spiritual entities attach themselves to you. You go home, you take that with you, and then it starts affecting your whole household. Then your mum and your dad come over, then they get it too. And then, like I said before, all of a sudden, you've got a spiritual pandemic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I love the scripture that you spoke about before, with love is kind. And I'm going to throw that up on Insta and on social. So look, we're going to end it there. Again, another wonderful show, fabulous show with amazing information. And look, we want to hear from you. If you are, if you love the information that we're sending out there, especially during this level 4 lockdown, we want to hear from you. Tell us what you want to talk about. What if you've got any questions or queries, please let us know on all of our social platforms. You can jump on the StayMe Always, the Healing Well YouTube channel. And again, I'm going to plug and say like and subscribe. But we want to hear from you, so then we know that we are hitting the nail on the head in terms of what you want to hear about. Our next show, we will be talking about our current situation across New Zealand, being in our level 4. So you don't want to miss out on that. We're going to be talking about Botox and filler. So definitely join in, and that's a show you definitely don't want to miss out. So thank you so much for joining our Lockdown Handle of Hope series, and we will see you tomorrow at the same time. Have a good one.
Los vi a todos de nuevo.
Bye.